Leave here. This is not a charity home.
She was old, frail, and trembling. All she asked for was a cup of water and somewhere to rest. But what the bank manager did next left everyone speechless. Then a young woman stepped forward. And from that moment, something happened that changed everything. Who was this elderly woman? And why did her golden bracelet unlock a secret from the past? Sit back and discover this incredible story. This story happened on a hot Thursday afternoon at Unity Bank in Lagos, Nigeria. The banking hall was busy with customers. Air conditioning hummed softly. The marble floors gleamed under bright lights. Well-dressed people stood in neat lines, handling their transactions. Security guards watched from corners. Everything looked orderly, professional, clean. But what was about to happen would shake the very foundation of that calm atmosphere. This was the day a simple request would expose hidden truths. This was the day a stranger would reveal a connection that no one saw coming. That afternoon, the glass doors of the bank opened slowly. At first, nobody noticed. But then heads began to turn. An elderly woman had walked in. Her name was Grace. Her head tie was old and faded. Her wrapper had patches sewn with different colored thread. Her feet were swollen, squeezed into worn slippers. In her right hand, she carried a small cloth bag. She held it close, like it contained everything she owned. She looked like someone's grandmother. Her back was bent from years of hard work. Her eyes looked weary. Her breathing was heavy. Her steps were slow and careful. A customer service officer whispered to his colleague, "How did this woman enter here?" The second officer shrugged. Maybe she got confused and thinks this is a government office. Grace walked slowly across the polished floor. Her slippers made soft sounds against the marble. A woman in expensive jewelry looked up from her phone and frowned. "What is happening here?" she whispered to her husband. "This is supposed to be a premium bank." Grace didn't stop. She walked directly to the customer service desk, where a tall man in a crisp blue suit stood. His name was Marcus, the branch manager. His tie was perfectly knotted. His shoes were polished. His face showed authority and pride. Grace looked up at him with tired eyes and spoke softly. "Please, my son, I am very tired. I walked a long distance. Can I sit somewhere for a few minutes? And if possible, a cup of water?" There was silence. A security guard turned to watch. A young man with his laptop smirked. Someone else quietly reached for their phone to record. Grace stood there patiently. She didn't demand. She didn't complain. All she had was hope and the dignity of her years. But what happened next was something she never expected. Marcus looked at the old woman from head to toe. He didn't smile. He didn't offer her a chair. He didn't even ask what brought her to the bank. Instead, he laughed, a cold, sharp laugh that echoed through the banking hall. He leaned forward and said loudly, "Old woman, are you lost? This is a bank, not a motor park rest stop." Grace stood still. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Marcus looked around, making sure people could hear him. He raised his voice even more. "We serve customers here, not beggars. Go outside and find a tree to rest under." A security guard nearby tried to hide his smile. A customer whispered something to her friend. Grace opened her mouth slowly and said, "My son, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just need to rest for a small moment. I will not disturb anyone." Marcus waved his hand dismissively. "Mama, before you embarrass yourself further, please leave. You're making our real customers uncomfortable." Marcus's face twisted with irritation. He grabbed a bottle of water from his desk and opened it. "You want water? Here's your water." Without warning, he poured the entire bottle over Grace's head. The cold water soaked through her head tie, ran down her face, and drenched her old clothes. She stood there, dripping and trembling, too shocked to move or speak. The banking hall fell into horrified silence. Grace looked down at the floor, water still dripping from her clothes. Her legs felt weak. Her heart was breaking, but her dignity remained intact even in this moment of ultimate humiliation. Grace looked down at the floor. Her legs felt weak, her heart was heavy, but her feet wouldn't move. Around the banking hall, people began to notice. A young couple stopped their transaction to look. A man counting money paused and stared. There was an uncomfortable silence. Then, from behind the foreign exchange counter, someone laughed. "This old woman thinks Unity Bank is a charity organization." A few people chuckled. Others looked away uncomfortably. One elderly man shook his head in disapproval. But Marcus wasn't finished. He said again, "Mama, this is a place for people who contribute to the economy, not for those who drain it. Please leave now before I call security." Grace didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. Her eyes remained fixed on the ground. Her hands gripped her small bag tightly. Her heart was breaking, but her dignity remained intact. In the corner near the ATM section, a young woman was completing a transaction. She wore a simple but elegant blue dress. Her natural hair was neatly styled. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Her name was Stella. She had just returned from the United States, where she worked as a software engineer. This was her second month back in Nigeria after 5 years abroad. She had come to Unity Bank to transfer money to her new business account. But now her transaction was forgotten. Her eyes were locked on the elderly woman standing at the customer service desk. She had witnessed everything she saw when Grace walked in. She heard Marcus's cruel laughter. She watched how people treated the old woman like she was invisible. Stella's chest tightened. She couldn't explain it. But something about Grace seemed familiar. Her voice, her gentle manner, her patient suffering. Something tugged at her memory. Stella leaned forward slightly. Her eyes moved slowly across Grace's face, then down to her wrist. And then something caught her attention. The bracelet. It was old, very old. The gold had faded, but the intricate pattern was unmistakable. Small cowrie shells were woven between thin gold threads. Stella's heart stopped. She knew that bracelet. She had seen it every day for years. She reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and carefully zoomed in. Yes, it was the same bracelet her beloved teacher used to wear. Her teacher's name was Mrs. Rose Bakare. They were close like mother and daughter. Mrs. Rose had taught her in primary school, mentored her through secondary school, and even helped her apply for scholarships. Stella's hands began to shake. She whispered to herself, "Wait, how is this old woman wearing Mrs. Rose's bracelet?" She stared again, studying the face, the voice, the gentle manner. Could this woman be? Could she be the teacher who changed her life? Her chest filled with emotion. Her hands gripped her purse tighter. She stood up quietly, pushed her chair back and began walking toward the customer service desk. The sound of her heels made a few people turn. Grace was still standing there, tired and waiting, holding her cloth bag like a shield. Marcus stood with his arms crossed, looking satisfied with his cruelty. But his expression changed the moment he saw Stella standing beside the old woman. Stella faced him calmly, but her voice was firm. "Did I just hear you insult this woman for asking for water and a place to rest?" Marcus straightened his tie. "Madam, please don't interfere. This woman came here to beg." "This is a financial institution, not a charity." Stella's eyes flashed. "And because of that, you think it's acceptable to humiliate her publicly?" She turned slowly and looked around the banking hall. Some people looked down. Others pretended to be busy, but many were watching. Stella raised her voice slightly. "Is this who we've become? Is this how we treat our elders now?" Marcus tried to interrupt, but Stella continued. "If this woman was your mother, would you want her to be treated like this?" A murmur went through the crowd. A young woman near the entrance whispered, "She's right. That old woman could be anyone's mother." An older gentleman in Agbada nodded and said, "We have lost our way." No respect for elders anymore. Marcus looked around, feeling the pressure. The laughter had stopped. The proud faces had turned serious. Stella turned her full attention to Grace. Her voice became gentle, loving. "Mama," she said softly, "please sit down. Let me take care of you." The banking hall went completely quiet. Grace looked up at Stella, her eyes blinking slowly, unsure of what was happening. Marcus rolled his eyes and spoke again. "Madam, please don't create drama in my bank. We have policies here." Stella didn't even look at him. Her voice remained calm, but carried authority. "Keep talking, Mr. Manager. I know the regional director of this bank personally." She paused, then added with quiet strength, "One more disrespectful word, and I guarantee you'll be updating your CV by tomorrow." Marcus went silent. He looked around the hall. Too many people were watching. Too many phones were recording. Stella gently touched Grace's arm. "Mama," she said softly, "please come and sit with me. You're safe now." Grace looked at her with wonder. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't speak. Stella helped her to a comfortable chair in the VIP section. She bought a bottle of cold water from the bank's cafeteria, but instead of simply handing it to Grace, she did something unexpected and deeply touching. Stella knelt beside Grace's chair. She opened the bottle carefully and poured the cool water slowly over Grace's tired, swollen hands. The water ran between her fingers, washing away the dust from her long journey. Then she took out her handkerchief and gently dried Grace's hands, massaging them softly. "This will help you feel better, Mama," Stella whispered with tender care. Grace's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. No one had shown her such kindness in years. The cool water on her hands was like a blessing, and Stella's gentle touch reminded her that she was still worthy of love and respect. The people watching were moved to silence. Some wiped tears from their eyes. This simple act of pouring water over an elderly woman's hands spoke louder than any words could. But Stella's eyes kept returning to something else, something around Grace's wrist, a bracelet that was about to unlock a door to the past. The banking hall had settled into an uncomfortable quiet. Stella sat beside Grace in the VIP lounge. The old woman felt refreshed after the gentle care she had received. Her hands had stopped shaking. "Thank you, my daughter," Grace said softly. "God will bless you. I was just so tired and thirsty." Stella smiled and touched her hand gently. "You don't need to thank me, Mama. You deserve respect." As Grace rested peacefully, Stella's eyes returned to the golden bracelet. She leaned in carefully and spoke softly. "Mama, I hope you don't mind me asking, but that beautiful bracelet you're wearing, where did you get it? It looks very special." Grace paused. She looked at the bracelet on her wrist. She touched it gently, like it held precious memories. "It belonged to my daughter," she said quietly. "Her name was Rose. She was a teacher. She loved this bracelet. Before she died, she gave it to me and said, 'Mama, whenever you wear this, remember that you raised a daughter who touched many lives.'" Stella's heart stopped beating. She leaned forward urgently but kept her voice gentle. "Mama, what was your daughter's full name?" Grace's eyes became distant with memory. "Rose Beccare. She taught at St. Mary's Primary School, then later at Government Secondary School. She never married, but she treated her students like her own children." Stella suddenly stood up. Her hands flew to her mouth. She was shaking. "Mrs. Rose Beccare?" she whispered. Grace looked up, confused. "Yes. Did you know her?" Stella quickly opened her purse. Her fingers searched frantically until she found what she was looking for, an old photograph carefully preserved in a plastic sleeve. She handed it to Grace with trembling hands. "Mama, please look at this picture." Grace took the photograph slowly. It showed a younger woman in a teaching uniform, surrounded by students. In the center of the group was a little girl with bright eyes and a wide smile. Grace's eyes widened. She stared at the photo, then at Stella, then back at the photo. This is my Rose," she whispered, "and this little girl." She looked up at Stella with growing recognition. "Stella? Little Stella?" Stella was crying now. "Yes, Mama, it's me, Stella. I was in your daughter's class from primary 4 to primary 6. Grace dropped the photograph and reached out to touch Stella's face with shaking hands. "My God," she breathed. "Little Stella who used to stay after school because she had nowhere to go. Little Stella who my daughter fed every day." Stella nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, Mama. Mrs. Rose saved my life. When my parents died, she took care of me. She paid my school fees. She bought my uniforms. She made sure I never went hungry." Grace was sobbing now. "She talked about you all the time. She called you her special daughter. She was so proud when you got the scholarship to study abroad." Stella held the old woman's hands tightly. "Mama, I looked for you after Mrs. Rose passed. I came back from America for her funeral, but I couldn't find you anywhere. People said you had moved." Grace wiped her tears. "After my daughter died, I couldn't afford the house anymore. I moved to a small room in Agege. Life became very hard." They held each other and cried. They didn't care who was watching. The moment was too powerful, too sacred. Just 1 week later, everything changed for Grace. Stella didn't stop at giving her water and comfort. She went far beyond what anyone expected. She found a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet area of Ikeja. The rooms were bright and clean. The furniture was new and comfortable. The kitchen was fully equipped. One quiet morning, Stella took Grace's hand and said, "Mama, this is your new home." Grace stood at the door, staring in disbelief. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Tears filled her eyes. This is for me?" she asked with trembling lips. Stella smiled. "Yes, Mama. Your daughter took care of me when I had nothing. Now let me take care of you." But Stella didn't stop there. She hired a kind young woman named Joy to help Grace with cooking and cleaning. She also arranged for regular medical checkups and made sure Grace had everything she needed. Then Stella did something even more meaningful. She established the Rose Beccare Foundation, a scholarship fund for orphaned children. Every year, 10 children would receive full educational support from primary school through university. Grace no longer worried about rent. She no longer walked long distances in search of help. She no longer went hungry. She had a comfortable home, regular meals, good health care, and most importantly, a daughter's love. One evening, they sat together in Grace's new sitting room. Soft light came through the window. The evening breeze was gentle and cool. Grace held Stella's hands and said, "My daughter, may the Almighty bless you beyond measure. May you never lack. May your children be blessed. May goodness follow you all your days." Stella bowed her head and answered, "Amen, Mama. Amen with all my heart." That day, a broken woman was restored, and a teacher's legacy lived on through the life she had touched. Since Grace moved into her new home, Stella visited her regularly. She would bring groceries, fruits, or sometimes just sit and talk. She video called her colleagues abroad and introduced them to Grace. They would wave and greet her warmly. One peaceful evening, Stella came to visit alone. They sat in the small garden behind the house. Grace looked content and healthy. Stella turned to her and said softly, "Mama, there's something I need to tell you, something I've never shared with anyone." Grace looked at her with gentle attention. Stella took a deep breath. "When I was a little girl and my parents died, I almost gave up on everything. I thought education was useless because I had no one to support me." She paused, looking at the stars beginning to appear in the sky. "Your daughter didn't just teach me mathematics and English. She taught me that I had value. She taught me that my circumstances didn't define my future." Stella's voice began to shake slightly. Every morning, she would look at me and say, "Stella, you are destined for greatness. Never let anyone convince you otherwise." Grace listened with deep attention, her eyes bright with tears. "Mama, everything I am today, my education, my career, my success, it all started with your daughter's belief in me." Stella wiped a tear from her cheek. "When I got the scholarship to study computer science in America, I had no money for the application fees, passport, or visa. Your daughter used her savings to help me. She said, 'Education is the best inheritance I can give you.'" Grace was crying now, quiet tears of pride and joy. "I promised her that if I ever succeeded, I would find you and take care of you. Today, that promise is fulfilled." Stella reached out and held her hand. "Mama, I know I can never replace your daughter, but I want you to know this. As long as I live, you will never lack anything. You are my mother now." Grace squeezed her hand. Through her tears, she managed to say, "Thank you, my daughter. Thank you." and they sat together under the stars, two hearts connected by the love of a teacher who had gone to be with the ancestors, but whose love continued to work miracles. 2 months had passed since the day Grace was humiliated at Unity Bank. That day remained in the hearts of everyone who witnessed it. But one young man who was there did more than just feel sorry. His name was Samuel. He had been waiting in line for a bank transfer when everything happened. He saw Marcus mock a hungry, tired old woman. He saw the cruelty and the laughter. He also saw how Stella stood up for her and how everything changed. Samuel couldn't forget what he witnessed. That night, he sat down and wrote about it. He wrote everything from Marcus's harsh words to how the old woman was later honored by a stranger. He posted the story on Twitter with the title, "This happened 2 months ago at Unity Bank, and it changed my perspective on humanity." He didn't mention the bank's name initially, but someone else recognized the location and tagged Unity Bank. Then another person shared it, then another. Within 5 days, the post had over 50,000 retweets. People were outraged. They demanded, "Who is this manager who laughed at an elderly woman? Why is he still employed?" By the 7th day, the bank's head office received hundreds of complaints. The regional director called for a full investigation. When they reviewed the security footage and interviewed witnesses, the truth was undeniable. Marcus had brought shame to the bank's reputation. On Monday morning, Marcus arrived at work with his usual confident stride, but this time his office was empty. His nameplate had been removed. A sealed envelope with his name sat on the desk. Inside was a termination letter. "Your services are no longer required. Effective immediately." He stood there in shock, silent and alone. But no one pitied him, because the whole world had seen his cruelty. What lesson did you learn from this story? Remember, every person you meet carries a universe of experiences. Treat them with the respect and kindness you would want for your own family. The teacher's bracelet didn't just connect a past and present. It revealed that love, once planted, never truly dies. It continues to bear fruit across generations, transforming lives in ways we may never fully understand. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, like and share.